We've got a great showing tonight. Thank you everybody for coming out on this evening. On behalf of the St. Thomas Academy Mothers and Fathers Club, I'd like to thank you for coming. My name is Jeannie Polacek. I'm Vice President of the Mothers Club, and here representing the Fathers Club is its President, Michael Widener. Tonight is the first, thank you. Tonight is our first in a series of speakers, and a very special one it is. You read about tonight's speaker in the Sabre. You've seen him at all of our school functions so far, and perhaps you've even had the opportunity to introduce yourself to him personally. So tonight we're here to get to know him a little better and learn more about his vision for St. Thomas Academy. And after we've heard a few words from him, we're going to open it up and you'll have a chance to ask him some questions of your own. We'll be walking around with a wireless mic and we'll have a little question and answer time. So with his extensive educational, professional, and personal experience under his belt, he's returned to his old stomping grounds as the first Academy alumnus to hold his position here. We are so blessed that he is here to help lead our young men in these formative years. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you our new headmaster, Mr. Matthew Mohs.
Thanks, Jeannie, and thanks, Mike, for the invitation. I really appreciate the opportunity to just come and spend the evening with you all. It's some of you have had the opportunity to hear me once or maybe twice so far, and so I am trying to keep my comments fresh, but some of the things will also be probably a little bit repetitive in the sense that I do want this to be an opportunity for you to get to know me, and so some of it is just my life is my life, and I can only tell it in one so many ways. But I really do appreciate the support that you've shown, the interest that you're taking to come out tonight, and the passion that you have for the school. In the months since I was first announced as headmaster, I have spent a lot of time thinking about this role, what I'm bringing to it, the responsibilities that are entrusted to me by the board, by the faculty, by the alumni, by you as parents, and most importantly, the cadets. I've said it many times so far, but I hope I never lose my sense of gratitude and humility at this opportunity. This school is a place that means a great deal to me. And for those of you, I don't have to assume that you've read the Sabre. I don't want to, have it be required reading or anything along those lines. But I do think it's important to understand, if you want to understand where I'm coming from and the perspective I bring to the vision for the school, it really is rooted in my history, in my connection with this school. Obviously, it was mentioned that I am a graduate of the class of 1990, and this school came to me in a way that I never imagined it would. For those of you who are new parents, you heard this at new parent orientation, but I was not the kid that was expecting to come to St. Thomas Academy, because my family was in New York. I was born in New York City, grew up in New York City. My mom and dad are both from here. My dad's a graduate of this school. My mom is the daughter of Cy Turbis, who was a professor here at the Academy, and a professor of my father. That's how they ultimately met when my dad was coming back through town. He was 13 years older than my mother. They met, hit it off, moved off to New York, got married, had me, the whole shebang. So we were rooted in New York City. My dad's career was in New York. I was in school in New York, and I was planning on going to Fordham Prep. And then life happens. We had our ups and downs as a family, and my mom and dad decided to separate. And it was pretty sudden. I was out here visiting my grandparents, and we were just told, you're not going back. You're going to stay here, and you're going to go to high school here. as I remember, I was given the choice of where I could go. Knowing only St. Thomas Academy, given the family connection and given the fact that I had come to summer camp out here, it seemed like the logical choice. I was later told that had I expressed interest anywhere else, that the choice would have been made for me. But, you know, I know as parents you probably discover those neat little tricks of getting your kids to think they're making the choice when it's really your choice. It was really challenging coming to a place that I visited but didn't think was going to be my home. Coming to a school where I didn't know a soul other than a few of the teachers. Coming to a school where they didn't have uniforms in my size. So on the first day of school and the second day in school and probably about the 37th day of school, I was wearing khakis and shirts and not in uniform. So I stood out like a sore thumb. And I felt like I stood out like a sore thumb. And it was the experiences day in, day out with the faculty, with my classmates, that really helped me not turn inward. That helped me not get focused on what I was losing and feeling like my world was crashing down around me. And yes, thankfully I was a good student. I could turn to academics and I could look at it, and look at something to distinguish myself when I felt like there were a lot of other things that were not going well. But in the end, I found that this place helped me find who I am and who I wanted to become. And it's that journey that I had that I have taken with me on every journey since, onto college, into my profession as a teacher, into the various graduate programs. And it's those things that I bring back. It's not as a form of nostalgia, but it is in a way a remembrance of what this school does, not just because of the 4 pillars, not just because of the long tradition, not just because we have excellent teachers, but the whole package. Everything that comes together that makes St. Thomas the unique school that it is. And that's what I believe I have to keep at the center of the leadership around this school. Is, yes, remembering that we are going to pursue excellence around the 4 pillars, around the various types of programming, around the developments that occur in high school education and middle school education. But at the end of the day, this is a school that's really about the boys that we graduate and who they are and who they're becoming and what path they're put on by the time they leave us. And so it's how we're developing them spiritually, intellectually, physically, socially, how we have helped them to develop a sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves, something that's oriented greater to than just themselves. So we exist to help shape and forge young men who are going to emerge from the academy with the academic skills to succeed in their chosen profession or vocation, with the self-confidence to assume a place of leadership in their community and their profession, with the moral grounding and sense of faith to serve others, especially those less fortunate, and to contribute to the greater good, and with a sense of community and brotherhood rooted in love that will make them excellent fathers and spouses, adult sons and brothers, and friends and citizens of the greater community. Every day I stare at the quote from Archbishop Ireland that we have all over the place. It's on the wall in the headmaster's office. The proof of excellence of an institution is found in the class of students it sends forth each year to fight the battles of life. And that is going to keep me grounded in recognizing when we make changes around here. And there will be changes that occur. I hope that, my tenure here as headmaster is going to last a long time. I've had people express their hopes that I can be here for 20 years or so, that I'm young enough that I can do that. And I hope that that's true. You know, I always like to have goals for myself, and the idea of, you know, I get numbers are something I get into a little bit. So the idea of a sesquicentennial celebration for the school is something that I hope I'm here for. And I hope that I'm leading this school still. But it's going to be up to the community as much as it is going to be up to me. But I guess if a couple of people mentioned to me that they heard from their sons about formation today. And I guess if you ever need a reminder about the big picture or about what St. Thomas is and what it does, or if you just need to get a little tear out of your system or two, take the 18 minutes to watch the ceremony this morning from formation. It's posted on our YouTube page. You're going to be really impressed by our boys, but you're also going to be reminded that the STA experience is much, much more than just the 4 pillars or how those 4 pillars are enhanced. So as I've come in, I wanted to share a few of the reflections that I've had about my entry so far into the academy. This place is a really strong school. You know that. You've helped make it that. But I also think it's a school where it's pretty easy that we could fall into a trap of complacency because there are a lot of really good things and you just want to keep them going. My counterpart across the street has a nice blog, which I've been encouraged to take a look at. And she had a nice comment about schools are either moving forward or they're moving backwards, but they're rarely staying still. And I do think that there's a lot of truth in that, and I think she and I share a lot of similar perspectives about leadership of schools. And so obviously my goal is going to be to continue to have the academy moving forward in all the ways in which we service the boys and in how we enhance their experiences. I know that coming in communication was desired, increased communication was desired, and that has been a priority of mine. It's been a priority with the faculty, it's been a priority with the boys, it's been a priority with all of the different constituencies. And that will remain. It's not just a fleeting moment because that's what I heard most coming in. There is a natural style that I have towards broad communication, so you'll get tired of getting emails from me, but you know, the delete button isn't too far away, I think. But hopefully you'll read them and see that I'm trying to just share the experience that we're having here at the academy. I know that visibility and presence was also something that was mentioned often as I was making my first entry visits here, and I know I've probably disappointed a few by not making it to making it to the first football game or to every event. I'm not going to be able to make it to every event, but I am going to be supporting our boys in everything that they do. So whether it is the major athletic events, or it's the theater productions, or it's the EVT movie night, or some other kinds of activities, I will be supporting them. And it may not be always at the events, but it will be supporting them after school. It will be supporting them in their classrooms. I want them to know me and I want to know them. So it's going to take me a long time to get all the names down, but I'm going to be trying, and that's my goal, is for them to really to get a sense that they know that their headmaster cares about who they are and what they're doing and how STA is helping them become who they want to become. I also believe in leadership with a strong sense of empowerment of those who have a vested interest in the school. So I don't see this as abrogating my duties as headmaster, or not being responsible for decisions that come. I will always view that at the end of the day, the buck has to stop at my desk, and so I will accept those responsibilities, but I also believe that an empowered community is the strongest kind of community you can have. And so I'll always be looking at ways to reach out to parents, to the students, to the faculty, to the alumni, to make sure that the direction that we're going as a school is the direction that we want to go in. It's not just my vision for the school. I also know that I aim and strive for consistency and clarity in how I approach things. So hopefully you will find that as you get to know me better. I also am really focusing on the relationships with the different constituency groups, particularly with the faculty and staff. That's one of the things that I know that I heard a lot and have really invested a lot of time. So far I've met with probably about 95% of the staff in the building one-on-one. And again, the things that you can take away from those messages, from those meetings, sure, that everyone has their own perspective about things that can be done better, but at the end of the day, there's such a deep passion and commitment to serve your boys that I leave inspired by the conversations. Even if some of the stuff is difficult to hear, they love your boys, and you know that, I think, from getting to know them, even if you disagree sometimes with how a grade has been handled or how an assignment's been done. In the end, the staff are really committed to seeing your boys come out of this experience as better men. So as I move forward in this first year, I'm looking forward to really focusing on the community. It's what attracted me back to the academy, and it's what distinguishes the academy. And so I don't want to lose sight of that in the midst of all the busyness of things that have to happen. I did not come in with a huge master plan or an agenda checklist of things that I have to accomplish in my first 100 days or in my first 90 days. There's a lot of instruction that occurs for leaders of schools that talks about your entry plan in your first 100 days. And I think for me, it just comes across as not something that works for a couple of reasons. One is, yes, I am vested in this community. I don't think anyone will doubt that, but you are also vested, and you're more currently vested than I have been. And so I believe it's really important for me to do a lot of listening coming in, to do a lot of observing, to assess where we are as a school, and to ask a lot of questions, to not assume that just because I think I understand something that I really do. And I also recognize that I have to be aware that there are at least 3 traps that I can fall into in this role. And I'm going to be asking my team and really anyone to keep me grounded and aware of those traps that I can fall into. The first thing is that as an alum, I think those of you who are alums will know that there's an easy tendency to romanticize the past. The way things were back in the day, whatever back in the day was for you, whether it's 1990, 1970, 1950. I get a lot of that with the alumni. And we have to recognize that the good gets enhanced and the bad gets glossed over from the past. And so I think I have to be aware of that tendency that we have in our community. I think I also have to be aware of the fact that coming in as an educator from a different set of settings, I have to defend against assuming that decisions I've made in the past that have worked in the past will just automatically work in this new environment. And so, again, making sure that I'm grounding myself in the context of St. Thomas Academy. And really the third is that, if you read my profile, you probably got the sense I'm a type A person. And so I like lots of information in my decision making, but I also have blind spots. Everyone has blind spots. And so I trust that I'm surrounding myself with a team that's going to have that courage to say, you know what, Matt, have you thought about it from this perspective? And I would ask anyone to feel free to share their perspective. I don't take that as being disrespectful. I don't take it as challenging authority. I really take it as a desire to understand and a willingness to share perspective. Your perspective is what you own, and so it's important to honor that. Just as I will share my perspectives on things. But I also know that we don't always have the luxury of time. we are not always afforded the ability to just, take the year and get to know people and focus only on that. And there really are a few things that we have that I think are challenges that I need to address in this coming year. First off, we have to tell our story better. And that starts with me, but it also involves each and every one of you. It involves every one of our boys and every one of our faculty members. We have an amazing school here. And again, as I've said, we're not just that all-boys school or that military school. We are far more than that, and having people see what we are and who we are, and having parents understand that you want your boys to be a part of this. Any parent should want their boys to be a part of this. And not every parent is going to be able to, and not every parent is going to want that, but we can at least help spread the word. So that's one of the things that I'm focusing on. We do have an enrollment challenge. Our enrollment has tapered off over the last few years. We are down to 626 or so right now, and we should be in the neighborhood of 660 to 690 to be healthy, and we really should be probably in an ideal situation closer to 750. So we have a lot of room to grow. The new Flynn Hall actually added a great deal of capacity. I was asking the other day, what is our functional capacity in this building? If we were to be running at full capacity every hour of the day, we could probably have over 1,000 boys here. Now, I don't think that that's the kind of school that we want, but I do think that we need to have more than 630. And so we have a team that's working on how to approach this. I fundamentally believe that in a metro area of 3 million people, with all the young boys that are available in a 30-minute radius of this building, that we should be able to find 750 young men in ages grades 7 through 12 that would benefit from this experience and would want to be a part of it, and some who can afford the whole ticket, and some who we can support to come here so that we can continue our focus on, being available to all. I also know that we have a couple of other areas to address, but I guess before I move off of the enrollment, I do see the opportunity for you all to help us. And some of that will be not being shy if you think that there's a parish or a school that we have not reached out to sufficiently. That might be from your own personal experience, that you came across STA by chance, by fluke, or because of a personal relationship, but it wasn't because we did the outreach at your school or at your parish. And you know that they're families that would be interested if they knew more about the academy. Invite me. Invite me to come with you to church. Invite me to meet your principal. Invite your former principal. Invite me to come to your community. One of the things that I see in my role on the enrollment side, I'm not going to be doing all the day in, day out admissions work that Ms. Manser and Mr. Kinney do along with Mr. Bjork. But what I can do is be an ambassador for our school. And the best way to be that ambassador is to do it with your help, because you're the ones that will have the relationships and the credibility. I can show up cold, but it's a lot better if there's someone there to make the introduction to ease the relationship. The other two areas that are really areas that we have to develop this year, the first one is on the technology integration side. We started pretty quickly last year. We got into the 7th and 8th grades with iPads, with resources that were identified for that year, and we have to make sure that the plan is fully mature and get it developed for going into the future years. I want to revisit the conversation around bring your own device, and I've talked about it with some staff. I have some concerns about the dynamics of a bring your own device model. but that's not without its challenges of what it means for us if we were to look at other options. But I don't think that we're going to be in a position where we can delay that conversation much longer. We are, I think you know that we're a bit further behind than other schools on this. And our 7th and 8th graders ultimately aren't going to be willing to call a timeout when they get to high school until we get our act together. So I see this as this is the year for us to figure out the path that we're going to go down. I just need to review it. I want to make sure that we've asked all the questions that we should be asking in that process, and looking at the models that are available. They're really, the bring your own device model is somewhat of an easier one on the financial side, because we don't have to assess a technology fee, or we don't have to, you know, carve out money in the budget or increase tuition to cover a technology fee. I mean, there are lots of ways in which a school would do that. But on the flip side, it introduces a variable in the classroom that I'm not sure is worth introducing, with different devices for a staff that are going to have to be focusing on what does this do for teaching and learning. Because at the end of the day, the device is just a tool. It's not going to change fundamentally what we're about. We're still going to be about educating the boys to become the men that we want them to become. The technology is a way for us to improve teaching and learning, to help them on that path. And so that's where we're going to spend our energy this year, but please watch for that. If you have thoughts about it, I'm open to those suggestions. I'd love to hear some feedback from you on that. And then finally, it's the transition out of JROTC. You know, obviously that announcement came at the end of the year. We are transitioning to an independent military institute, and so with that comes both a great amount of opportunity for us to modernize our military leadership curriculum, to be able to enhance it with things that we probably wouldn't have if we were trying to conform with the JROTC model. But we also, it comes with its challenges of the fact that we're on our own. And so we had a 99-year relationship with the junior ROTC program, and it did a lot for this school. And so we have to figure out that path. Colonel is up to the challenge. He's been thinking about it since the day that it was becoming clear that this was not an if, but a when. And I do think I agree with the decision that us helping dictate the when is probably in our interest, rather than getting a letter in the middle of summer saying, sorry, our budget ran short, we're not going to be able to support you next year. That was not a situation that we would want ourselves to be in. So I do want to just conclude. I know that I've talked a lot about the current state of the school and about my current priorities, but you also came to hear about my vision for the academy for multiple years. Some of you are brand new families with 7th graders. Some of you are on the 12-year plan or the 18-year plan, or I don't think any of you are on the 30-year plan, but some of you have family relationships that certainly have put you on the multi-decade plan. And this school is, you know, it's going to be around for generations to come. So what does this next period of our history is leaning towards? I know that you're sacrificing a lot to send and investing a lot to send your boys to this school. And I know you don't just want to have me focus on what's this year. You want to hear about where we're going down the road. I know that when I state what my vision is, that it can become normative. And so I'm very cautious around that, because I don't believe it's just my vision. I believe that I have the responsibility in my role that my understanding of what the vision of this school is does set the tone, it sets the direction. But it can't just be what I think about this school. I have to have it grounded in this community. I have to have it grounded in the hopes and the aspirations of our boys and those who love this school. And I have to have it rooted in the tradition and the legacy that I'm inheriting. So I'm going to address some of those things, but I want you to understand that this is not me setting out a vision for St. Thomas Academy for the next 25 years, and it's not going to change one iota. It is my initial thoughts coming in of opportunities that I see that we have in some areas that I think have already been articulated in our strategic plan. But again, the strategic plan is not an immutable document. It didn't descend from the mountain and is carved on stone. It is a document that we can change when we want to. As I said, I believe that we need to increase our enrollment. I think 750, which we haven't been at, I think, in many, many years, if ever, is a very healthy enrollment given the size of our campus. But that also means as we grow, we also need to grow our racial and ethnic diversity. We have good religious diversity, we have good socioeconomic diversity, but racially and culturally, we are still about as diverse as we were when I was a student, when my dad was a student, maybe a little more so than that. But I think that this is going to give us an opportunity for greater outreach, but it also means that we have an additional responsibility. Bringing in students from different cultural and racial backgrounds is an obligation that I'll take very seriously, and an obligation to those families to make sure that the experience is as good as it is for any student that is coming from a white family. And I think that it's an opportunity for us to really reflect as an organization. What has the experience been for students of color, and what can the experience be? We have to finish the Defining Moment campaign, whatever we call it, however we proceed with it, on whatever timeline that we move forward. We have an endowment to continue to grow. Yes, it's great that it's healthy, but we also we want to continue to grow it so that we can continue to keep the school as affordable as we can, given what we want to offer. We do have an issue with the pool. At some point, we are going to have to address it. The fix that we made is temporary. Temporary being defined as probably not 15 years, but probably more than 5. But you never know, too. And so we're looking at how do we move forward with that. And then Founders Hall has to ultimately be addressed while keeping the character of it and what that beautiful court and entry does for our school in terms of the tone it sets and the community that it builds and all the experiences that occur around that central point. We still are going to we have to address accessibility. We have to address how we have to modernize some of the other classrooms in the main building. And so those are going to be requests that are out there at some point in the future. What the timing is, I can't speak to right now, but I do know that that is a vision that I share with the previous administration and with the board in terms of trying to define those, in terms of trying to improve those 2 areas. In terms of our academic program, obviously, you're paying for a high-quality private education. And the academics are not going to be something that I ignore. They are something that I think we can be proud of, but I also think they're things that we can always be doing to improve. And so I am going to be challenging our staff to continue to focus on how we can make our learning more student-centered, how we can have it be really emphasizing learning for the sake of learning and what the outcomes are, not just the grade, being motivated by grades. Yes, grades are important, but I ultimately believe grades are a symbolic reflection of something more. And so when you lose that perspective, it can become, it becomes sort of a system unto itself. And I think we do want to make sure that the learning comes back to the center of it. We'll continue to explore options for additional electives. I know that that's been a concern that many parents have expressed, a lot of students have expressed, faculty have expressed. But at the end of the day, I also don't want to apologize for who we are and sacrifice who we are. The leadership program and the Catholic, the theology courses are 2 sets of courses that make this school, help make this school who we are. We are more than any single program, but those 2 contribute dimensions that I'm not willing to compromise on for the sake of electives. I think that we can look at scheduling to prioritize things differently. We can look at various options. We can coordinate better with visitation. We can also embrace the idea that exposure to other things through extracurriculars is also part of our curriculum. That it's not really extracurricular, it's co-curricular. And in the sense that the full St. Thomas experience goes beyond the 8 a.m. to 2:45 time period. It is morning, noon, and night for those years, and particularly the senior year. The kids who benefit the most are the ones who get most involved. We're going to continue to explore how we can develop our students spiritually, how we can continue to enhance the leadership program to develop our boys into fine young men and fine leaders. And we're going to continue to push on with our boys on this idea of what brotherhood means. And that brotherhood is that certain things that can be perceived as brotherhood might not truly be all that brotherly. And so we're going to continue to work on that. I also think that we have to continue to strengthen our relationship with visitation, to recognize the interdependence that we share as a community, and not in a codependence or one being subservient to the other, but truly as partners serving many of the same families. So I just want to close before taking questions and just recognizing that I know that in a school that has a lot of type A kids, with a lot of type A teachers, with a lot of type A coaches, with a lot of type A parents, a lot of type A alumni, that the pursuit of excellence is something that we just get. It's something that the school was founded for, and something that we have to be committed to. But we can't lose sight of the community in the pursuit of excellence for any one area of the school. So I see my job as headmaster to try to strike that balance across all those wide interests, to challenge the complacency that when it can set in, and to support the ongoing improvement, but never losing sight of the experience that our boys have right now and the boys that we're going to have the privilege to serve in the future. And I think with your help, we're going to have a very bright future. So with that, I'm going to open it to questions. I think Mike and Jeannie are going to be walking around. One of them will be walking around with a mic, and thank you for listening.
Thanks. Yeah, I've had three boys already graduate, and I've got another on the way. I'm wondering if you have, well, there are two things I'd like to comment on. One would be, have you looked at the college advising program, because I think that there are some areas for improvement there. And then number two, if you looked at bringing back the boarding school at all as a way to grow enrollment and add diversity, maybe with some international students.
Okay, thank you for the questions. And on the college advising side, yes, we are, again, looking at ways that we can improve it. I think there are a couple of things that we can do to start moving some of the supports down further. So beginning the conversations earlier, and even starting in 7th and 8th grade. One of the things I didn't mention in looking at some of the flexibility, one of the ideas that's bouncing around in the back of my mind is sort of early high school credit for kids who come to the middle school, and looking at ways to free up periods that might happen. So that would also necessitate sort of that greater college counseling access, so that kids are making informed decisions with their families as they're making decisions that impact not just the current year, but could impact what they're taking 4 years from now. And I think that that's an area that we're looking at. Our new college counselor, I think she's coming in with a good bit of energy about how to look at the program and really take it in, build on what Mr. Bjork had put in place, and also bring her own flavor to it. So on that side, I think we're very aware of the need to at least continue to improve the supports and to move them down earlier. In terms of the boarding program, it has been on the table as a conversation. There are a couple of things that I hesitate in regards to it. One is the condition of the boarding buildings. We don't fully know the extent of investment that we would need to bring them up to minimal standard, and I'm not sure minimal standard is necessarily competitive with what a lot of other schools are able to offer. The international boarding certainly is a development that's occurred with a lot of private schools. It is also quite a responsibility to take on. And I think if you, as I said, I have to believe that in a metro area of 3 million people, we have enough students to attract from our existing population in the metro. So I think I've tabled the conversations that were occurring about it for right now to focus on a few other areas first. That's not to say we wouldn't revisit it, and eventually we have to address what's going to go on with the West Line and O'Shaughnessy buildings, regardless of a boarding program or not, because it's a beautiful part of our campus and buildings that are in a little bit of rough shape.
Anybody else?
Hi, I am a senior, so to some extent I think we're set, but I did read your profile in the Sabre, but we also have a new Dean of Academics, and I haven't really seen any communication on his education or background, the role that position plays in the school, how is the person selected for that. There was always just Dr. Heidelberger, so I don't know. So if you could just address what you see that person's role and how it might impact our boys.
Thanks. So Mr. Meyer came to us from Hill Murray. He was principal over at Hill Murray, and he was there for last 2 or 3 years. He was principal at Faithful Shepherd prior to that as well. So I think those of you who are Faithful Shepherd alums, I think, might have had Mr. Meyer. I know he's run into some families that here who have current students who were his families back then. So Dr. Heidelberger's retirement was announced pretty quickly towards the end of the year, just as Dr. Mish was transitioning out and I was transitioning in. We did have some conversations about whether or not to post the position. I ultimately decided to go with Dr. Mish's recommendation to post it for a couple of reasons. One, I was not really interested in making a huge restructuring of the administrative team without even being on the job here, to understand everyone's strengths and responsibilities. So I had to trust the advice that I was being given. So that was partly how the decision was made to post it. How David was hired was really a joint process between me and Dr. Mish. In consultation with the faculty, we had a selection committee that did the interviews for the post. They made a recommendation. I met separately with Mr. Meyer, as did Dr. Mish. And so I think we all got to the comfort level of having him take on that role. I see the Dean of Academics role really being the keeper of the academic life. So while I think I have a lot to offer in that conversation, I also recognize that there is attention that has to be paid on an ongoing basis, and I do think that sometimes the responsibilities of the headmaster get pull them in different directions. And so I think that that's why you've seen a lot of specialization over the years for those of you that have had multiple boys go through here, was you've seen more specialized administrative positions. So he'll be working with the faculty pretty closely in terms of not just things around the course structures and making sure Schoology is kept up to date and making sure that we have consistent grading practices throughout the school. Yes, some of those responsibilities are going to be there, but it's also going to be leading the conversations with the faculty around what direction do we go? How do we continue to improve? And I do think that we have a lot of traditional methods that are currently being used. Isaac's has identified that as an area that we could revisit and explore how to just improve what we do on a day in, day out basis. And Mr. Meyer and I have had conversations about how we move forward with that. I think the technology integration piece, right now we had it, I think coming in, I recognized it was somewhat structured, a little bit in isolation from the core academic conversation. And again, if you're viewing tech integration as something to do, it's very easy to do it that way. If you view it as a tool to support the broader academic mission, then it has to be fully integrated in the conversation. You treat it just like you would treat a calculator, like you treat a pen, like you would treat a word processor. You look at it as one of the vehicles to enhance the learning of the boys. So Mr. Meyer is going to be helping lead those conversations as well, and he will be your main point of contact if you have concerns about schedule, if you have concerns about grades, if you have questions about what's going on in a day in, day out basis.
And for those of you who'd like to see Mr. Meyer, he is our featured speaker at the Fathers Club meeting on September 10th at 7:30 in the Wright Lecture Hall. So everybody's welcome. Do you have a question? Any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Mohs, for sharing with us your visions. I think that was helpful. And before you go, there's also a welcome parents, new families at actually an all-school tailgate party before this Friday's football game. I think that starts at 5 o'clock. So if any fathers want to volunteer and help out, you're more than welcome to show up. We do need to put up a tent at about 4 o'clock, and anybody else who wants to grill and just brotherhood, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. And thanks again for coming out tonight. I will hang around, and please come up, introduce yourself, reintroduce yourself if you already have, because unfortunately it's just taking a while for me to get all the names down. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to working with you all.